So how big a shift have we seen in technology from when you played for Liverpool to now?
It's enormous. I mean, changes to the game. I think we'll see more and more changes to the game. I suggested before Christmas, well, we should tweak the offside rule. I think if we're starting with a clean piece of paper and you say we want to make a game entertaining, the offside rule is one we'd look very closely at right now. It doesn't work. The game is quicker. There's a lot more pressure on referees, and I think it's a common sense one. You go back to when I played, the goalkeepers could pick it up. That's made the game more active, if you like. I think I watch a bit of rugby, and I've been to a few of the Six Nations, and I look at these rugby players and I think, because they're all so athletic today, and I know people will be screaming at me when they're listening to this. I see two groups of extremely fit young men, all can run like the wind, powerful men, and they basically cancel each other out until someone gets semi-dazed in a challenge and there's an opening somewhere. Because they can all cover the ground, they're making the game, in my opinion, a war of attrition. It's like, where's the running football, the running rugby, the entertaining stuff you can remember from the past? And I think there's an argument to make football, instead of 10 outfield players, maybe 9 outfield players. So I think we're in the same place, yeah. If you talk, we've got to remember, the connoisseurs and people of my vintage, it's a game. It's now entertainment. The Premier League has never been more interesting to people throughout the world than it is today. It's watched everywhere, and rightly so, because it's such an exciting sport to watch. But it is entertainment, and I think in our game now, when you look at the way our players are, they can cancel each other out, because they can all run like the wind. They're all terrific athletes, and I think when you see a player get sent off, all of a sudden there's openings. Okay, a lot of time teams retreat and they have 2 banks of 4 and they're sitting there. Difficult for the team. We've got 11 players, but I think if you were to take an extra player off each, take a player of each team, make it 9 outfield players, you see more attacking play and more openings. People are allowed to display their skills more and more goals.
That would be just a huge change, wouldn't it?
Would it?
I don't know.
What is it? People will say that altering the rule where goalkeepers could pick it up from a pass back was an enormous change. We've never looked back since then. I think when we introduced that,
was hugely beneficial, wasn't it, to attacking play?
Yeah. Well, I think the offside rule that I suggested, and now sort of some of the footballing wizards that run our game have bought into it and claiming it to be their right.
Arsene Wenger said a very similar thing, didn't he? Maybe he'd been listening.
No, he said exactly the same thing. He's a wizard. He's a professor.
Go on, Graeme, recap.
So I come back to, if you were starting, say someone came up and invented a game of football today, and you were saying, right, we've got to make it attractive. What do 99% of people go to football for? They want to see goals. They want to see goal with action. They want to see goals. They don't go to see 2 teams cancelling each other out. They don't go to watch a great centre half, defend his 6-yard box. They go to see the flair players, the badge kissers, the ones who run to the crowd rather than their teammates. I don't know where this conversation could go.
It's not going where I expected it to. I've got a rugby question coming.
That's why people go to football, see goals. Starting with a clean piece of paper, the one rule we would look at is the offside rule. And I'm suggesting we change it to any part being offside, to any part being onside. Now, defenders wouldn't like it, but I doubt if you'd find a striker who didn't like it. When the striker's trying to keep himself onside, he automatically leans forward. He's trying to get his body to a position where he's ready to sprint. The defender's standing upright, trying to catch him offside. Well, that would we could talk for a long time about this. What would it mean? It would mean defenders something to drop a wee bit deeper.
But then have the opposite effect of what you're intending, in terms of actually the unintended consequence is actually more negative football.
No, because defenders would automatically be dropping a bit deeper because they're thinking, the advantages now with the strikers, which means, there'd be more goal mouth action, there'd be more shots at goal, there'd be less controversy to deal with. Of course, there'd still be the marginal calls where they'd have to go to the VAR, because I think VAR is here to stay. People invested so much money and time in it. I think that's here to stay. And I think we are putting the referees under enormous pressure under the current rule of offside, where, it can be a toenail, it can be, a shoulder, it can be, a couple of hairs on your head. And I just think it's a common sense one to take. No supporter is happy with VAR. Nobody is. Even when we're in the studio and there's gone to VAR, we're sitting there, there's 30 seconds, a minute and a half, 2 minutes before sometimes they make the call. Nobody wants that.
It almost gets a bit boring in your job and my job a little bit, doesn't it? You feel like, it's another interview where it's going to be dominated by that, another post-match studio chat where a VAR decision dominates, and it's not really what you want.
No, it has. Listen, VAR is there. VAR is a tool to help referees make the right call. Ultimately, it still comes down to a human making the call with their interpretation of the rules, and they don't always get it right. It's put them under enormous pressure. I think we have to try and simplify it for them. And this offside suggestion, I think, would take a lot of the drama and the wasted minutes waiting for VAR decisions to be decided.
You've got this all day. Graeme, are you making a cup of tea?
That's my youngest wife.
Oh, is it?
And I bet she doesn't make me one. She may make me one.
This will be a good test. We'll stand for 10 minutes.
Patrick's asking. I got a giggle. I don't know if that's it.
Well, I told you before we came on, I'm living with my in-laws, so if the mother-in-law brings me or doesn't bring me a tea, I won't have the nerve to challenge her on that.
So you've got a good mother-in-law?
I've got a very good mother-in-law.
Seriously, I'm not just saying I've got a great one.
Really? Why?
Yeah.
Why?
And I think I should have married her, really. This
is definitely going off at a tangent, Graeme.
Yeah. Well, we're in difficult times. I live in a great. I mean, it is a very difficult time, and it's tragic, and it's desperate for people, who contract this virus. I live down in a very, very nice part of the south coast of England, and I can get out and get my walks in. I've got a routine. I can get out and do my stuff, and so far, so good for me. Your thoughts are never far away from the poor people who are laid up in hospital, gasping for breath right now.
How have you found it yourself? Like you say, there's a lot of people suffering miles more than we are, but how do you find the routine and being locked in?
I'm okay. I like, I don't know if you know this, but I like gardening, so I've got
Didn't know that.
A decent garden. Yeah, I like to potter.
What do you do in the garden? What do you do in the garden? What are your little bits? What are your plants?
I'll cut my grass, and if I'm not happy with the straight lines, I'll go back over it. Not mad for weeding. I was trimming my hedges. I've got a trimmer. I sort of stiff back the following day, my vintage. Just the general things. At this time of year, normally I'd be spending 2 or 3 days a week walking around the garden centre. But not at the moment, obviously.
It's a good time of year for gardeners, isn't it?
But excuse me, I'm doing a very serious interview.
Have a work, Graeme. You need to get the mother-in-law and sort this out.
She's emptying the dishwasher. My wife's asking, am I talking nuts again? She used another word, but nuts. Usual, darling. No.
So this is the one place you're not in charge, Graeme, isn't it? I'm learning.
No, I think we're all in that boat.
So also,
where were we, Patrick?
We sort of, I don't know, we're randomly talking about gardening. But one thing you said in your first answer, which I thought was interesting, which I didn't know as well. So you're into your gardening. No, I had no clue. Rugby as well. So when did you get into your rugby?
I've got a pal who used to own Sale Sharks.
Oh, right.
He's taken me to a few internet. Excuse me. Your champagne. I'm guessing the other wines that I'm getting that later today.
This is
an important question. My youngest wife asked, "Where is my wine, not our wine?"
My Graeme, what time of day is it?
Exactly. That's for tonight, honestly. Right. Yeah, a friend of mine, Brian Kennedy, owned Sale Sharks. He took me to a few Scottish games. and I just loved the atmosphere. But I did struggle to get into it, and I explained my thinking there, where it's the game today, like soccer, it's full of fit young men who cover the ground, and they can close down each other very quickly. They do it collectively because, like football again, I think they've twigged on to the fact that stopping opposition is a big part of the game. When I played at Liverpool, I mean, this is 100% true. They would say the team that does that best will be the team that wins the league. I think they're forever trying to light the fire under us, because that's all they used to say to us, was make sure you work harder than the guy you're in against. Do it collectively. So what is he did? What was Ronnie Moran or Joe Fagan or Bob Paisley describing then? They're describing stopping opposition, closing them down collectively. But it's a new thing in the game, Patrick. Another new thing in the game.
If you look back, do you think it's all these things existed, but now they've got names?
100%. 100%. You've heard my time at Liverpool, to go through the guys that were the important people at the football club. You had a manager whose great talent was to look at players and work out what the mix would be, and could see good players. Joe Fagan, his assistant manager, was everyone's favourite uncle. If you had issues, not just football ones, but anything that was a problem in your life outside of football, he was a go-to man. But his knowledge of football was second to none. And then Ronnie Moran was a younger man I went to his funeral 4 years ago, and I came away 3-4 years ago, and I came away, I had my son James with me, who would have been about 16 at the time. I said, thinking about it, is, he's the single biggest influence on my career. And my son started to ask me why that was. Can you hear this music in the background?
Quite a sec. No, so it's not as bad as that dishwasher was anyway.
No, it's my wife downstairs doing her classes.
Oh, what's she been doing?
Oh, Pilates and yoga. And she's had some weights delivered, which I've struggled to pick up. So, not that I've ever won an argument with her, but I won't be winning one anytime soon.
No.
So, Ronnie Moran was an individual who, kept us all on our toes. There was no watershed moment where he says, do this in the game or that in the game, where I've gone, wow, and that improved my game. It was all about just keeping us on our toes, reminding us that, yeah, you're good players, but you're not like the players we've had here in the past. Or, yes, you're a good team, but you're not like the teams we've had here in the past. And it always made you want to strive for more and better yourself. And it didn't matter if it was, you used to call us Kenny and I, and along with a few other older players, the big heads, and it was just, we were grounded all the time. There wasn't a day in training where he would miss an opportunity to leave a bit on someone, and just a little reminder that, you can get better, son. And he was such an influence on me.
When we talk about shifts in football, then, you were Liverpool manager when the Premier League came. And I've been doing a little bit of a look into that for something else that I'm working on. How big a shift was that, Graeme, in '92? Was maybe just a shift in terms of media attention and that sort of thing? Was football very much?
No, Patrick, it's grown. It's grown. I think I was managing Liverpool at Forest for the very first Premier League game.
Of course you were. Yeah, the Sheringham Cup.
It wasn't like a black and white overnight situation. The Premier League has just grown and grown and grown to where it is today, where it's the dominant league in the world. Going back, I left Liverpool in '84 to go and play in Italy, in Serie A, which had the best players in the world, the most money floating around in that league. So, 92.
92, yeah, first season.
When the Premier League came into play, it wasn't a black and white thing. The Premier League has been it's been an organic thing that's just gotten stronger and stronger with each year. And what I tend to be a footballer today, given the way they're perceived, the cash they earn, they're superstars today. In my time, and before my time, there was only half a dozen household names. Now there's 106 household names. And that's the profile of the Premier League. That's what we've done for these players. That's what television has done.
So I've spoken in the last couple of days. Sorry, go on. You go.
No, there's players today who are ordinary Joes, but are deemed stars. Because of what? Not because they're such good football players. It's because of the profile that television and every other media form is given them.
Yeah, so in the last couple of days, I've done a bit of reading and spoken to a few of the guys who were there at the beginning for Sky, and that basically was the plan. Obviously they were kind of working men with good jobs into stars, and is that right? So you obviously played for you maybe played for the best club side this country's ever produced with Liverpool in that era.
Well, I'm going to run a story, a quick. 1984, we won the European Cup, the League, and the League Cup. Kenny and I would imagine in '84 would have been maybe the best two paid players in the country. I don't know what he was getting. I'd imagine it was similar money to I was getting. I got 125 grand that year in 1984. Now that was, at the time, the average man's wage was maybe, I think it was £10,000 a year. So I was getting 12 times the average man's wage. You know, any amount of names I could pick. Hudson Odoi, a 19-year-old boy who's done absolutely nothing in the game. I think signed a contract for, was it 120, 130 grand a week. So I don't know, does that put him on over 100 times average man's wage, I would imagine? And that's someone who's got one foot on the ladder, he's not proved he's going to be a top player at the highest level. And that's how the game has changed for these boys.
But I guess, for example, to pick a name, Steve Nicol would have not been the same sort of profile that Trent Alexander-Arnold is.
No, that's the point I'm making.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
These young boys, they're blessed. They're playing at a time. Okay, not right now. It's difficult for everyone. But they should look at themselves in the mirror every morning when they're cleaning their teeth and think, "Boy, have I cracked it." If you're like for Trent, who has the potential to be the best in his position around. He at 21, is he 21? By the time he's 25, he will have earned enough cash. Never, if he's sensible and get good advice, never have to worry about money ever again in his life. We're guys I played with, and the guys before at Liverpool. And I'm saying Liverpool because Liverpool in the 70s and 80s was a dominant team. When the game finished for them, they had to go and find a job, and they were serial winners. Talk about great players, and I played with lots of great players at that time. And there's one who's never deemed to be a great player in people's eyes. Phil Neal. You have any idea what Phil Neal won in his career?
4 European Cups?
4 European Cups.
Yeah. 1
losers. And that was at Heysel. I said 7 or 8 First Division Championships of Premier League, the equivalent of. And I don't know, a UEFA Cup. I'm sure he must have won. Didn't he win an FA Cup? And I don't know, 4 or 5 League Cups. So what would you have to do? What would you have to win to be deemed a great, if that's not a great player? And there's others like that people don't talk about as great players.
Was he a household name, would you say?
No, I'll come back to it. That's what I said earlier, Patrick. In those days, there was only ever half a dozen people that we deemed household names. Today, there's 106, maybe more, because of television and the profile that football has today. It's a great time to be a football player.
But so in 92, 93, 94, did you have any sense of, hang on a sec, something's changing here? Or did you think those guys from Sky, was there any sort of inkling that something was happening?
No. But I was managing at the time, and my focus was just on, trying to win football matches. The other stuff, I think maybe there was more criticism in the game. I think it was just maybe the beginning of phone-ins, and people were, there was a platform for people to phone in after a game and be critical of their team or the players or the manager. I think that was the start of it. In terms of the football, did the football make a sea change? No, I didn't see it that way.
And in terms of that criticism, do you think that's because it was maybe a more difficult time for Liverpool, given what had gone before?
No, I wasn't being specific about Liverpool. I was being across the board. to where you are today. If you listen to the phone is on a Saturday or a Sunday evening, I mean, the gloves are off. You don't, the boys that do make the calls, and sometimes ladies make the calls, they're not holding back and being critical. And that's, I think, I liken it to Prime Minister getting out of his car, or ministers, because he doesn't really have the walk, he gets dropped outside number 10. But say the minister's walking into a Cobra meeting or walking into a cabinet meeting, and they've got journalists shouting ridiculous questions at them. Is that how the world has changed? Is that how media works today? Because certainly I think there's a lot more criticism. Even I suppose people would say that about the job I do now at Sky. We maybe venture into areas now and be critical of stuff that we would never have, our contemporaries of mine would never have done in the past. Can you hear my dog barking?
Yeah. We're seeing it all today, Graeme.
Yeah.
Has punditry changed? Do you think you so personally, would you be more harsh and more severe? Do you feel like you need to do that more than you would in the past, or is that organic again?
I don't think, I'd like to think, I haven't changed from the first day to now. I try to be unbiased. Obviously knows that I'm a Rangers supporter growing up as a boy. Played for Liverpool, Middlesbrough, once for Spurs. And they're the first results I look for. And then I suppose after that, as teams I've managed. But I'd hate to think that I've changed. I'll still be critical of Liverpool when I feel, although there's not been a lot to be critical for a couple of years now. But if I felt someone wasn't doing the job properly, that's my job, and I expect people not to agree with me. Because my job, you're going to have to excuse me. That's my dog wanting to go out.
Go for it.
2 seconds.
Okay.
10 seconds.
Let's hope he comes back. There he is.
Sorry, Patrick.
Sorry. So who's that, Graeme? Who you just have to deal with?
That's my little dog, Teddy.
Teddy. Just one dog?
Just the one dog, and he's the most gorgeous little man.
Now.
Yeah,
being the same as you ever were.
Say that again?
You were saying, as a pundit, you're the same as you ever were.
Yeah, I'd like to think I've been consistent. When I'm critical of Man United, people think it's because of the rivalry, because of, I've played and managed Liverpool. No, it's not. It's because Man United in the last few years have been not very, I'm trying to choose more carefully. They've not been where they want to be.
No.
There's politicians said the other day, when I was head of an organisation, there's green shoots for Man United. But, I'll be critical of people if I feel that they deserve it. And I'll be complimentary as well when they deserve it. And I like to think I've been consistent from when I started doing it to where I am now.
So, okay, as we wrap up then, I've got a little quiz question for you. As we speak, 15 years ago today, what happened?
15 years ago today?
This is in your life.
See, I'm an April Fool, but that was...
No.
There were lots of things. 15 years ago.
It would have felt like an April Fool, I think, at the time.
Talking football?
Yeah, football. You were on the touchline, and would it have been one of the worst things that happened to you as a manager? Probably pretty high.
It wasn't Kieran Dyer and
yeah, it was. Yeah, I read a piece just before I spoke to you. Yeah, 15 years ago today, apparently.
Yeah, they were two really good lads, two really good players. And it was frustrating. We'd been on a really good run. We were playing Villa at home. And, listen, I've been there. I've wanted to do that to my own teammates over my career. But, they were two winners. They were two guys that got frustrated by the situation, frustrated by each other. And, these things happen.
Well, it was quite
wasn't the worst thing. Worst things happened in that.
No, of course, yeah. It was interested though how you dealt with it, because wasn't it that after the game you had them straight up?
Yeah, because I knew we were going into the press conference that I was going to ask questions just couldn't possibly answer. I've tried to answer it as best I can. I've been in that situation. It never happened to me, but I felt like that on a football pitch. And I thought the best way to diffuse it was to take the two boys in.
Mm. It wasn't during it, I read as well today that Kath, the tea lady, who's a bit of a legend up there, brought you a tea during it, hadn't quite maybe grasped what was going on.
Yeah, I was in midstream, and she was great. She was great. And everybody knew her up there. So when maybe you hadn't won a game and she came in with a cup of tea, you just bought you a bit of time. No, she was fabulous. I think all the managers that she looked after would tell you the exact same thing.
But you've said as well that Newcastle was, I think I'm saying, that was your hardest job in management, harder than, I think people probably always look at it and think that era for Liverpool must have been a hard time for you. But Newcastle was harder?
It's very hard. Listen, I think I had 8 jobs and I was sacked 3 times, I think. Let me go through them. Yeah, I think I was sacked at Torino. I had 6 weeks there, 6 games there. 1-2 drew, 2 lost, I think it was. Sacked at Newcastle and sacked at Benfica. I think the rest of the jobs I decided to leave at under my own steam, if you like. There's no doubt about it, Liverpool was very difficult. I'd taken over a team that a lot of them were the wrong side of 30. I had a team that were I'm being kind of standing still, but I hadn't won anything for a couple of years. And I tried to change it too quickly. And I hold my hands up for that. Made a mistake. I let people go before their time. They were saying to me, I have 4 players, big players, who said to me, I've got an offer from somewhere else, I'm 31 or whatever, and it's a chance for a 3-year contract. And what my attitude should have been, or what my answer should have been, I hear you. You have to bear with me until I find your replacement. Instead of that, I fell out with them because I couldn't understand why you went to leave Liverpool. So I said, get them to phone me tomorrow, you can go the next day, and finish the conversation there. That was a mistake by me. And then it's a bit like where Man United have been for the last couple of years. They're buying players under pressure. Everyone that comes in has to be an instant hit. And where Man United were for 20 years, and where Liverpool were for 20 years prior to that, when they were top of the tree, or first or second generally, they could buy players, they could come into the group, have a good look at what's needed, what's expected of you, and then be introduced. Think of Fabinho, think of Andy Robertson. They didn't come.
Oxlade-Chamberlain.
Oxlade, well, of course, he got his injury, the Ox. So, that is the ideal scenario to be in. Not buying players like the rest of them. And City have been in a great place for a few years as well with that. You're buying players that don't have to come in and all the spotlights on them to be the difference for the team. Tremendous pressure for some boys, and some find that very difficult.
So did you feel as Liverpool manager it never quite settled for you, like you're saying with the signings, like you were always chasing it and never had the tools you wanted?
Yeah, I can't complain about the support and help I got there too much. We touched on something, I was doing something the other day, about when the boot room was done away with. I got the blame for that. And it was nothing to do with me. It was to do with they were extending the media room, and that encompassed the boot room. But no one upstairs stood up and said, no, it's not to do with the manager. There was a couple of things which I could have been helped on a more, I choose my words carefully, in a more sensitive way. A couple of areas I was left out to dry. Listen, that's such a long time ago. My love and affection for the football club still exists. They're a great team right now. I think for the integrity and validity of the Premier League, we'll have to finish this league and give them the title. And if that means that we, say, get back playing in June and we finish in October, right now, Patrick, the players have had the rest. So for me, they could start playing again, and when the season is finished, just go into the next season.
Mm.
And because they've had their rest, they don't need any rest. And if you think of, if it means in 2 years' time or 3 years' time, we're still playing catch-up to get the season back to the start in August, so be it. These are uncharted waters we're in. No, these are very, very strange times. So I think, what's the downside? I think we'll come back and play behind closed doors before it's open to the public. I mean, the downside to coming back, everyone's in the same boat in terms of fitness. The only dangers I see for the players, apart from the obvious, if they're, the pandemic, if we're not in a better place by the time they decide to come back, it has to be. One's not going to go without the other. The players coming back, they might get a few strains and pulled muscles. Everyone's in the same boat. I think we have to finish this league.
I think that's a nice place to finish, Graeme. You better get down there and do the weights with the missus, hadn't you?
No, not allowed in there. I can't do the weights. I think it's too heavy for me.
Right, thank you very much. Nice to see you again.
And you, Patrick.
Well done on mastering the technology.
Hopefully we'll have a beer soon. And if you want to tell the public that I got the technology right the first time, then you, as a young man...
Sorry, Graeme, we're going through a tunnel. We'll have to cut this out.
Yeah, I hear you.
No, well done. Great to see you. Great to see you.
Yes.